I've been a law enforcement ranger at Yellowstone for 9 years. Traffic violations, wildlife harassment, search and rescue, standard park service work. But there's one assignment nobody wants: patrol duty in the Idaho section. Most people don't realise Yellowstone crosses state lines. A 50 square mile strip sits inside Idaho, the Bachelor region. Remote, dense forest, no facilities. We call it something else when we're off duty: the zone of death. It's based on a real constitutional problem. Yellowstone falls under federal jurisdiction, Wyoming's district court, but this Idaho section creates a legal nightmare. The Sixth Amendment requires juries from both the state and the district where the crime occurs, but this area is in Idaho, but under Wyoming's federal district. 0 Idaho residents live in this federal district. You can't form a constitutional jury, and no jury means no trial. A law professor named Brian Catt published a paper about it in 2005. For years, it was just academic theory, something lawyers debated, until August the 14th, 2023. I was 4 miles into the restricted zone, checking for illegal camping, poaching activity, standard patrol protocol. I saw smoke rising through the lodgepole pines, campfire, in a total fire ban area. I approached on foot, hands on my side arm. The smell hit me 30 yards out. Not wood smoke, metallic, copper, sweet, burning flesh. "National Park Service," I called out. "Step away from the fire." A man emerged from behind a large pine. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, expensive outdoor gear. His hands were covered in blood, fresh, still dripping. I drew my weapon. "Get on the ground, hands behind your head, now!" He didn't move, just smiled, calm, almost amused. "Check your GPS, Ranger," he said quietly. Behind him, I saw a body, female, early 20s, throat cut. Her eyes were still open. "Get down!" I screamed. "We're 1.2 miles inside the Idaho border," he continued. His voice was steady, rehearsed. "This is the zone of death. You know what that means." My blood went cold. He knew. This wasn't random violence. This was planned. "I'm going to walk away now. If you arrest me, I'll demand trial. You can't impanel a constitutional jury from this district. The case gets dismissed. I've read the Catt paper 3 times. I know exactly how this works." He started walking, slowly, deliberately, maintaining eye contact. Every instinct screamed to pull the trigger, but I couldn't execute an unarmed man. I'm a federal officer. I have rules, even when they don't. I radioed for backup, kept my weapon trained on him until he disappeared into the forest. It took 4 hours for the response team to arrive. We recovered the body, Jane Doe, no identification, no missing person report match. We launched a manhunt, found his rental car 3 days later at a trailhead in Montana. Paid for with a stolen credit card under a fake name. Forensic pulled his DNA from the scene. No matches in any database. The FBI took over the investigation. They told me to stop discussing the zone of death, said it would encourage copycats. 3 weeks later, we found another body. Same area, same method, different killer. We caught him 2 miles from the scene. He didn't run, just smiled. "You know where we are," he said. "You can't touch me here." He confessed to everything, described the murder in detail, showed us where he hidden the weapon. The US attorney reviewed the case for 2 days, then declined to prosecute. "Constitutional grounds," the report said. He walked free. The word is spreading now. Reddit threads, true crime forums, YouTube videos. People analysing the legal theory, confirming if it's real, discussing it like dark tourism. Last month, we denied 47 backcountry permit applications for the Idaho section, all from different people, all citing academic interest in constitutional law. We've tripled patrols, installed trail cameras throughout the zone, but it's 50 square miles of wilderness. We can't monitor everything. 2 weeks ago, one of our trail cameras captured footage. 2:47 AM, a man dragging something wrapped in a tarp. He stopped directly in front of the camera, looked up at the lens, and smiled. We haven't found that body yet, but we know it's there, somewhere in those 50 square miles, where murder is legal, and the killers know it. That ranger patrols a place where the law can't reach. The next story takes place in Pelican Valley, where something started hunting grizzly bears and collecting their tracking collars as trophies. Pelican Valley is closed to the public, March through July, completely restricted. Even when open, it's day use only, 9 AM to 7 PM, no camping, no off-trail hiking. The reason? Highest grizzly bear density in the lower 48 states. I work in bear management for Yellowstone. We track populations, monitor health, collar dominant males. We know every bear in that valley. We name them, study their territories, document their behaviour. There was one we called Scarface, 22 years old, 600 pounds, an apex predator, king of Pelican Valley for 6 years. On September the 12th, his GPS collar sent a mortality signal. Stationary position, no vital signs. Probably old age, my supervisor said. He was getting up there. We flew in by helicopter at first light. The silence hit me immediately. Pelican Valley is usually alive with sound. Birds, insects, wind through grass. That morning, dead quiet. Nothing moved, nothing calling, just silence. We tracked the collar signal to a grove of lodgepole pines. The smell reached us before we saw the body. Not decay, something else. Must, ozone, sulfur. Wrong. We found Scarface in a small clearing. He wasn't dead from old age. He was broken. His spine was snapped, folded backwards at an impossible angle. 600 pounds of apex predator, bent in half like a toy. Another bear, I whispered. My partner, Sarah, was examining the ground. She shook her head slowly. Look at these claw marks, she said. Deep gouges in the soil, drag marks leading away from the body. Scarface had been moved after death, positioned deliberately in the clearing. Why would a bear move a kill? I asked. Bears don't, Sarah said quietly. That's when I looked up. 10 feet up a massive lodgepole pine, wedged in a fork of thick branches, a structure, woven from branches deliberately constructed, like a nest, but bears don't build nests. Sarah, I said, look at the tree. We approached slowly. Inside the woven structure were objects, radio collars, 7 of them, from bears that had gone missing over the past 2 months. We assumed equipment failure, battery death, but they were all here, arranged in a perfect circle, like trophies. This isn't possible, Sarah whispered. Bears don't collect, they don't weave, they don't display kills. I pulled out my radio to call it in. That's when I heard it, chuffing, like a bear's vocalization, but wrong, too rhythmic, too controlled, too intelligent. It was coming from the tree line, 50 yards away. I activated my thermal imaging scope, large heat signature, upright posture, standing behind thick pines, watching us. The heat distribution was wrong, too much thermal concentration in the head region, too little in the limbs, not a bear signature. "We need to leave," Sarah said, "right now." The chuffing got louder, closer. I scanned again. The signature had moved, 20 yards closer. "Back to the helicopter," I said. "Don't run, walk." We moved slowly, deliberately, standard bear protocol, never run from a predator. But every instinct screamed to sprint. We were 30 yards from the clearing when it stepped out. I didn't see it clearly, just movement, fast, impossibly fast. It covered 50 yards in maybe 3 seconds. We broke protocol. We ran. The helicopter pilot saw us coming, engine already running. We jumped in and lifted off as it reached the clearing. Through the thermal scope, I watched it stop, stand upright, 8 feet tall, just looking at us. Then it turned and walked back into the forest, unhurried. The official report said territorial dispute between dominant males, natural bear-on-bear predation. But they closed Pelican Valley 2 weeks early that year. Habitat restoration, the press release said. I know the truth. We're not protecting the habitat, we're protecting people from what lives there. I still monitor GPS collar data every day. In the past 4 months, 6 more signals have gone dead. All in Pelican Valley, all the same pattern. Sudden stop, no movement, mortality signal. Last week, a trail camera captured something, 3:17 AM, movement through the valley, upright, bipedal, carrying something. The image was blurry, but I could see what it was carrying, a radio collar, still transmitting. And yesterday, something else appeared on that same trail camera. My old Ranger jacket, the one I lost on a patrol 3 years ago, hanging from a branch right in front of the camera, like it was placed there for me to see. That ranger found something that collects trophies from its kills. The final story takes place in Hayden Valley, where 1,500 bison stampeded at the exact same time every night, away from something that showed up cold on thermal imaging, something that feeds on heat itself. Bison are predictable animals. They graze, they rest, they migrate along established routes. They don't stampede without triggers. Walls, lightning, gunshots, vehicle backfire, always a cause. I'm a data analyst for the Yellowstone Wolf Project. We use thermal imaging cameras to monitor predator-prey interactions throughout the park. Real-time feeds, 24-hour coverage. Hayden Valley is our primary study site. July the 14th, 2024, 11:43 PM. Our seismic sensors triggered. Ground vibration, significant movement. I pulled up the live thermal feed from Hayden Village. The entire herd, approximately 1,500 bison, was stampeding. Full sprint, northbound, coordinated panic response. I immediately scanned for wolf pack signatures. Nothing. No predators, no lightning, no obvious trigger. The stampede lasted exactly 4 minutes, then stopped as suddenly as it started. I flagged it as anomalous and filed a report. July the 15th, 11:43 p.m. Same time, same stampede, same duration. July 16th, 11:43 p.m. Again. Animals don't follow clocks. Instinctive behaviour doesn't synchronise to the minute. This was impossible. July the 17th, I presented the data to my supervisor. 3 nights, exactly same time, no visible trigger. Equipment malfunction, she suggested. I checked. All systems normal. This is real. July the 19th, Ranger Mike Sorensen volunteered for field observation. 20-year veteran, former military, unshakable. I'll park on the ridge overlooking the valley. He radioed at 10:30 p.m. Get direct eyes on whatever's triggering this. Copy that. We'll monitor thermal from here. 11:40 p.m. Mike, status? In position. Herd is calm. Normal grazing behaviour. No weather anomalies. Clear sky. I watched the thermal monitors. Hundreds of red heat signatures. Warm bodies scattered across the valley floor. Hundreds of red heat signatures. Warm bodies scattered across the valley floor. Just normal distribution. 11:42 p.m. Mike, see anything unusual? Negative. Dead quiet out here. Not even wind. 11:43 p.m. A new signature appeared on my screen. Not from the forest edge. Not approaching from outside the herd. It appeared inside the herd. Centre of the thermal image. But it wasn't red. It was blue. Dark blue. In thermal imaging, blue means cold, below ambient temperature. Freezing. Mike, check your thermal. 3 o'clock from your position. Inside the herd. I see it. What the hell is that? Unknown. Can you get a visual? Trying. My windshield just fogged up. Temperature inside my truck just dropped. It's freezing in here. On my screen, the blue signature was moving. Not running. Gliding. Bipedal. Upright posture. 7 to 8 feet tall. Walking through the bison herd. Everywhere it moved, the animals scattered. Parting around it like water around rock. They could sense it. Something we couldn't see with naked eyes. It's moving towards me. Mike's voice crackled. My breath is fogging. I can see frost forming on the inside of my windows. Mike, start your engine. Just get out of there. I'm trying. Engine's dead. Battery's completely drained. All electronics are failing. On screen, the blue signature reached Mike's truck. The truck's heat signature, the warm engine, the heated cab, it started turning blue, rapidly cooling. The thermal camera was watching something drain heat from the running vehicle. Mike, respond. Static. Mike! The blue signature stood next to the driver's side door. For 30 seconds, it didn't move, just stood there. Then it faded, dissolved into ambient temperature, gone. The bison stampede stopped immediately. Mike, do you copy? Nothing. I dispatched quick response team immediately. They reached Mike's truck at 12:15 a.m. and what they found made no sense. Frost covered the entire vehicle, an inch thick, in July, in 70-degree weather. All the windows had shattered, imploded inwards from external pressure, like something had compressed the air around the vehicle. The interior was coated in ice, dashboard, seats, steering wheel, everything frozen solid. But Mike wasn't there. No blood, no signs of struggle, no tracks leading away, just an empty, frozen truck. We searched for 3 weeks, drones with thermal imaging, search dogs, helicopter sweeps, ground teams covering every square mile. Nothing. Mike Sorensen vanished. The official report listed it as medical episode with substantial disorientation, wandered from vehicle, succumbed to elements. But I have the data. I saved the thermal footage before they wiped the servers. I watch it sometimes, late at night. The way the blue signature moved. It didn't walk, it glided. Physics says heat transfers from hot to cold. Warm objects lose energy to cooler surroundings. That thing wasn't just cold, it was a heat sink, absorbing thermal energy from everything around it. The warmth of the bison, the heat of the engines, life itself. Hayden Valley is open to tourists again. Thousands drive through it every day. But if you're ever driving through at night and your windows start fogging up and you feel the temperature drop, don't stop, don't investigate, just drive. Because something walks that valley, something that feeds on heat, and it's always hungry. National parks are beautiful. Millions of people visit them every year. Most come back with photos, memories, stories, but some people don't come back at all. These are 3 true stories from America's national parks. Stories about the moments when nature stopped being beautiful and became something else. My boyfriend Jake and I had been planning this hike for 8 months. Half Dome, Yosemite. We gotten our permits in the lottery. 1 in 1,000 chance. We weren't going to waste it. We started at 6 AM. The weather forecast said clear skies all day. Perfect conditions. The first 8 miles were easy, gradual, beautiful, and then we reached the cables. If you've never seen the Half Dome cables, let me explain. It's a 400-foot vertical climb up a 45-degree granite face. There are 2 metal cables bolted into the rock, about 3 feet apart. You pull yourself up, hand over hand, using wooden planks as footholds. It's terrifying even on a good day. We started at 1:30 PM. There were maybe 30 people on the cables, spread out, moving slowly. I was in the middle, Jake was 20 feet below me. Ahead of me was a couple, David and Melissa, maybe in their 40s. They looked experienced, calm. David was about 10 feet above me. At 1:47 PM, I heard thunder. I looked up, dark clouds rolling in fast, too fast. "We need to get down," Jake yelled from below me, but we couldn't. There were 15 people above us, 10 below us. The cables are only wide enough for 1 person at a time. You can't pass, you can't turn around, you're trapped in a line. The thunder got louder, and then I felt it. The cables started humming, a low vibration running through the metal. I looked at my hands wrapped around the cable, and I felt it getting stronger. At the bottom of the cables, a ranger was screaming, "Get down! Lightning! Get off the cables!" But we couldn't. David was 10 feet above me. He looked back. His eyes were wide. "We have to move faster," he said. Melissa, his wife, was right behind him. She nodded. David reached for the next plank, and that's when the lightning hit. It struck him directly, a blinding white flash. The sound was deafening. David's body convulsed, his back arched, his hands let go, and he fell. I watched him fall 800 feet, silent, tumbling. He hit the granite below. I heard it. Melissa screamed, a sound I'll never forget. She was frozen, hands locked on the cables, staring at where David had been. and I was still holding the same cable, the cable that had just been struck by lightning. My hands were tingling, burning. The metal was vibrating harder now. Jake was screaming from below me, "Let go! Let go!" But I couldn't. If I let go, I'd fall. If I held on, the next lightning strike would kill me. The storm lasted 18 minutes. It felt like hours. Another bolt hit the summit above us. The current ran through the cables. I felt it in my teeth. When the storm finally passed, I looked at my hands. They had burn marks, red lines across my palms, from gripping the electrified cables. It took 2 hours to get everyone down. Melissa had to be physically removed from the cables. Her hands were locked, cramped. She wouldn't let go. They pried her fingers off, one by one. David's body was still at the base. I didn't look. The investigation took 3 weeks. The National Weather Service had issued a thunderstorm warning. At 1 p.m, 47 minutes before the lightning strike, but the rangers at the base never received the alert. Communication failure. If we'd known, we never would have started up the cables. David would still be alive. I looked into the numbers later. 25 people have died on the half-dome cables since 1948, 9 from lightning strikes. The cables are metal, bolted into granite. They act as conductors. When lightning hits, the entire system becomes electrified, and if you're holding on, you're part of the circuit. Yosemite now requires permit holders to check weather updates the morning of the hike, but storms develop faster than people can descend. If you're halfway up when the thunder starts, you're trapped. The park knows this. They can't fix it. The only solution is not to go up, but people still do. I haven't been back to Yosemite. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see David, letting go, falling, and I feel the cables, humming, waiting for the next strike. That hiker survived, but David didn't. The next story I'm going to tell you, the victim didn't just die, he dissolved. June the 7th, 2024. 4 of us drove out to Yellowstone for a week. Me, my roommate Colin, and 2 other friends from college. We were celebrating graduation. Colin had never been to Yellowstone before. He was obsessed with getting the perfect photo. For Instagram, he kept saying. On day 3, we went to Norris Gyson Basin. It's one of the hottest, most acidic thermal areas in the park. Boardwalks wind through the basin, elevated, safe. There's signs everywhere. Stay on the boardwalk, ground is fragile, water is boiling. We'd seen the signs 100 times that week, but Colin ignored them. We were at Emerald Spring, a beautiful pool, bright green, steaming. Colin wanted a photo at the edge, just 1 step off the boardwalk, he said, for perspective. Dude, no, I said, the signs. It's fine, the ground looks solid. He stepped off. The ground gave way instantly, like stepping through ice. Colin fell through the crust, into the pool. He screamed, the water was boiling. I ran towards him. A ranger 50 yards away started sprinting. Do not enter the water, she screamed. Colin was thrashing, trying to get out. But every time he touched the edge, his hands slipped. The skin on his face was turning red, then white, blistering. He screamed for maybe 20 seconds, and then he stopped. The ranger reached us first. Get back, she yelled. Get back from the edge. 2 more rangers arrived. They They had a long pole, a rescue hook. They tried to reach Colin. His body was floating, face down now. One of the rangers hooked his jacket. He started pulling, and the jacket just came apart. His skin underneath was coming away. The ranger let go. "Stop," the lead ranger said. "We can't safely retrieve him." They made us leave him, escorted us back to the ranger station. We were hysterical, screaming, crying. The lead ranger, Captain Morris, he sat us down. "I need you to understand," he said. "The water in that pool is approximately 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The pH is 2.1. That's more acidic than battery acid, more acidic than your stomach." "So get him out," I yelled. Morris shook his head. "We can't. The water is too hot and too acidic to enter safely. Even in protective gear, your friend's body will dissolve. We'll attempt recovery tomorrow morning when the water cools slightly, but I need you to prepare for the possibility that there won't be anything left to recover." We stayed at the ranger station all night. None of us slept. At 6 a.m, Captain Morris came back. He told us everything. "We returned to Emerald Spring this morning," he said. "Your friend's body is gone. The thermal features dissolved most of his remains overnight. We found some clothing fragments, some bone pieces at the bottom, but we could not safely recover them without risking more lives." What do you mean, dissolved?" one of my friends asked. "The combination of heat and acidity broke down the organic tissue," Morris said. "I'm sorry, there's nothing left to recover." The official report listed Colin's death as accidental death by thermal immersion. Remains not recoverable. I looked into it later. It's not uncommon. Since 1890, at least 22 people have died in Yellowstone's thermal features. Most of the bodies have never recovered. The water dissolves them completely, in some cases within 24 hours. Colin wasn't the first. In 2016, another man, also named Colin Scott, he died in the exact same way. He stepped off the boardwalk at Norris Gyson Basin, fell into an acidic pool. By the time rangers returned the next day, his body was gone, dissolved. Yellowstone has 10,000 thermal features. Most are unmarked. The ground looks solid, but it's just a thin crust over boiling, acidic water. The park can't mark every danger. There are too many. The only rule is, stay on the boardwalk. But every year, someone steps off, for a photo, for a closer look, to hot pot, to soak in the thermal pools illegally, and every year, somebody dies. I didn't go to Colin's funeral. There was no body to bury. His parents held a memorial service, empty casket. I couldn't face them, because I was there. I watched him step off the boardwalk, and I didn't stop him. You know, I still think about that. The way his skin looked, red, and then white. The way the ranger's hook just pulled his jacket apart. The way Captain Morris said, "There's nothing left." 24 hours. That's how long it took for my friend to disappear. Not just die, dissolve, like he was never there at all. That hiker watched his friend dissolve, and there was nothing he could do. The third story I'm going to tell you, 2 people went to sleep in a tent and never woke up, and nobody knows why. June the 9th, 2025. I was 3 days into a solo backpacking trip on Isle Royale. It's a remote island in Lake Superior. No roads, no cars, no cell service. You get there by ferry or seaplane, It's one of the least visited national parks in the country. That's why I went. I wanted to be alone. On day 3, I hiked to South Lake DeSaw Campground, a backcountry site off the main trails. I'd reserved it weeks in advance. When I arrived at 4 p.m, I saw a tent already set up. At first, I was annoyed. Someone was in my site. But then I checked my permit. I had site 3. The tent was at site 2. Okay, no problem. I set up my tent 20 yards away, boiled water for dinner. The whole time, I kept glancing at the other tent. It was completely still. No sounds, no movement, no one came out. At 6 p.m, I walked over. Hello? I called. No response. I waited. Anyone there? Nothing. I walked closer. The tent was zipped shut. From the inside, I could see the zipper pull on the interior. Hey, I don't mean to bother you. I just wanted to say hi. Silence. I stood there for a minute. Something felt wrong. At 7 p.m, I radioed the ranger station. Isle Royale had a limited radio network, spotty coverage. I got through after 10 minutes. This is Ranger Kelly. What's your location? South Lake DeSaw, Site 3. There's a tent at Site 2. I think someone might need help. They're not responding. Can you check on them? I tried. The tent is zipped shut. I don't want to open someone else's tent without permission. Okay, stand by. Ranger Kelly arrived by boat 6 hours later. It was after midnight. He had a flashlight, a medical kit. Show me, he said. We walked to the tent. Kelly knocked on the poles. National Park Service, is anyone in there? No response. He unzipped the door and immediately stepped back. Call it in, he said. We have 2 deceased. Inside the tent were 2 people, a man and a woman, both in their sleeping bags, eyes closed, peaceful, like they were just sleeping, but they weren't breathing. Ranger Kelly wouldn't let me near the tent. This is a death investigation now, he said. He radioed for backup. It took another 8 hours for the investigative team to arrive. By then, it was 9 a.m. I sat at my campsite, waiting. They asked me 100 questions. When did I arrive? Did I hear anything? See anything? I told them everything, which was nothing. 2 weeks later, Ranger Kelly called me. The couple had been identified. Chris, 34, and Lauren, 32, married, from Wisconsin. They'd been on a 5-day trek. Last check-in 4 days before I found them. The autopsy results were in. Cause of death? I asked. Undetermined, Kelly said. What does that mean? It means we don't know what killed them. No trauma, no injuries, no signs of struggle, no carbon monoxide poisoning, no drugs or alcohol, no persistent medical conditions. The toxicology report came back clean. Both of them died at the same time, between 2 and 3 a.m, lying in their sleeping bags. They just stopped breathing. How is that possible? I asked. We don't know, Kelly said. It happens sometimes. Sudden onset medical complications. That's what we write in the report. But the truth is, we don't have an explanation. Has this happened before? There was a pause. Yes, he said, 4 times this year. Isle Royale is historically one of the safest national parks. The average is 0 to 1 death per year. In 2024 and 2025, there were 4, all of them unexplained, sudden onset medical complications, undetermined cause of death. The park doesn't have apex predators except wolves, and wolves don't attack humans. There's no dangerous gases, no toxic plants in that area, just people going to sleep and then not waking up. I left Isle Royale the next day. I took the first ferry out. I didn't finish my trip. I couldn't, because every time I closed my eyes, I thought about Chris and Laura lying in their sleeping bags, peaceful, unaware that they were dying. The case is still open. The park released a statement. 2 individuals were found deceased at a backcountry campsite under undetermined circumstances. The investigation is ongoing. That was 8 months ago. No updates, no answers. I thought about it a lot. What could kill 2 people at the same time, in their sleep, with no warning, no symptoms? I've read every theory, cardiac arrest, undetected poison, but nothing fits, because it happened to both of them simultaneously. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. I was 20 yards away, in my tent, breathing the same air, drinking the same water. Whatever killed them, it could have killed me too. I got lucky, or maybe I didn't. Maybe it's still out there, waiting. There are 400 national parks and forests in the United States, millions of acres, and within them, restricted areas, closures, zones where even rangers are told not to go alone. Sometimes it's for wildlife protection, sometimes it's terrain, and sometimes it's because of what's already there. These are 3 true stories from rangers who entered restricted areas and found out why they were all closed. I was 24 when I took the seasonal job at Redwood National Park. It was my second summer. I knew the terrain, I knew the protocols, and I knew that Section 7, about 8 square miles of old growth forest on the eastern boundary, was closed to the public. The sign said, Habitat Restoration. The real reason was erosion and unstable logging roads from the 1970s. Rangers still patrolled it, twice a month, usually in pairs. But it was late August, we were understaffed, so my supervisor sent me out solo with a GPS tracker and a radio. Standard sweep, check for encampments, trash, off-trail damage. I started at dawn. The first 3 miles were quiet, thick canopy, moss everywhere, you could barely see the sky. Then, around mile 4, I started noticing things. Orange irrigation tubing running parallel to the trail, half buried in the leaves. I stopped. Irrigation meant water, water meant people, and people weren't supposed to be here. I followed the line of trail, 50 feet, 100, and then I saw them. Plants, hundreds of them, marijuana, rows and rows strung between redwoods with tarps overhead and PVC irrigation running from a nearby creek. I kept walking. The grow stretched on, a quarter mile, easy, maybe more. Thousands of plants, industrial scale, and then I saw the shotgun shell. It was lying on the trail, fresh, 12 gauge. I crouched down, and that's when I noticed the fishing line, tripwire strung across the path at ankle height. I stepped over it carefully. My heart was hammering. Ahead, I saw a clearing, propane tanks, a generator, tarps forming a makeshift shelter, and inside, sleeping bags, food wrappers, a cooler. Someone was living here. I pulled out my radio. Dispatch, this is Ranger Hollis. I'm at mile marker 4.7, section 7. I've got a large-scale illegal grow operation, trip wires, evidence of armed occupants, requesting backup. There was a pause. Then my supervisor's voice came through. Calm. Too calm. Copy that, Hollis. Mark your GPS location. Do not engage. Leave the area immediately. I frowned. Copy. Should I? Now, Hollis. I started walking back, then quieter, almost a whisper. They've killed a ranger before. I didn't ask questions, I just moved, fast. The hike out felt twice as long. Every branch snap, every bird call. It made me flinch. When I got back to the station, my supervisor was waiting. He pulled me into his office and closed the door. What you saw stays between us and the feds, he said. DEA is already aware. They've been monitoring that area for 6 months. Cartel operation. Armed guards rotate in and out. Why didn't you tell me? Because if we told you, you wouldn't have gone in, and we needed fresh intel. I stared at him. He sighed. There was a ranger in Mendocoli National Forest, 2019. He found a grow, reported it. 2 weeks later, his house was vandalized. His wife's car was followed. He transferred out of state. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were photos. Dead deer, poisoned by pesticides used on the grows. A destroyed creek ecosystem, and a surveillance photo, grainy, zoomed, of 2 men with rifles. They know our vehicles, he said. They know our routes. The raid is scheduled for October. Until then, Section 7 is off limits, officially and unofficially. I left the office feeling sick. A week later, I was getting groceries in Crescent City. I came out of the store, and there was something on my windshield. A bullet, unfired, placed carefully under the wiper blade. No note, no message, just a bullet. I told my supervisor. He told me to file a report. I did. Nothing came of it. The raid happened in October, like he said. By the time DEA and the Forest Service got there, the camp was gone, dismantled. They found the irrigation, the tarps, the trash, but no people, no plants. They'd been tipped off. I didn't renew my contract. I transferred to a park in Colorado, smaller, safer. But before I left, I looked into it. Turns out, 4 other rangers have requested transfers from Redwood in the last 3 years. All of them had patrolled Section 7, but none of them would say why. That ranger left the park, but the second ranger I'm about to tell you, she wasn't so lucky. I've been a ranger at Glacier National Park for 6 years. I've seen grizzlies up close. I've pulled people out of hypothermia. I've done recoveries on climbers who didn't make it. Nothing prepared me for what happened in September of 2024. I was doing a solo patrol in the backcountry, standard route. We call it the Bear Loop. It runs through a grizzly management zone that's closed to the public from April through to October. It's about 12 miles, remote, no cell service, just me, my radio, and my sidearm. I'd done it a dozen times. This was a Thursday. I started late, around 10 a.m. instead of 8. My daughter had a soccer game that evening, and I was trying to time it so I'd be back by 5. Around mile 8, I saw him, a man, sitting on a rock, eating an MRE. No pack, no tent, no trekking poles, just boots, jeans and a green jacket. I stopped. Sir, this area is closed to the public. He looked up, smiled. I know. There was something off about him. His hands were too clean. His boots had no mud. I'm going to need to see your permit, I said. He didn't move. You're running 20 minutes behind, Karen. I froze. Your daughter's soccer game is at 6. You'll miss it again. My hand went to the radio. "How do you know my name?" He stood up slowly, calm, like we were old friends. "You patrol this route every third Thursday. You carry a Glock 22. Your supervisor is Jim Cartwright. You got divorced in 2021. I stepped back. "Who the hell are you?" He tilted his head. "You really should vary your schedule, Karen. It's not safe out here." I pulled my radio. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Torres. I have an individual in the closure area. Male, 50s, no gear. I need backup." When I looked up, he was gone. I scanned the tree line. No movement, no sound. I ran forward to where he'd been sitting. No footprints, no MRE wrapper, nothing. Dispatch came back. "Copy, Torres. Nearest unit is 40 minutes out. Do you need immediate assistance?" I stood there, breathing hard. "Negative. Subject has left the area." But I didn't believe that. When I got back to the station, I filed a report, described him, requested a route change. 2 days later, my supervisor called me into his office. "We've got a problem," he said. He showed me a printout, a screenshot from a dark web forum. It was a list, ranger names, patrol routes, schedules. My name was on it. "There was a data breach," he said. "Last year, internal MPS communications. Someone got access to dispatch logs, route assignments, personnel files." "How many rangers?" 7, across 4 parks. He slid another page across the desk. "A police sketch. This match your guy?" It did. "His name is Colin Voss, person of interest in a 2018 case. Stalking, assault, backcountry encounter in Olympic. Victim was a female ranger. He knew her route, her schedule. He was waiting for her." "Did they catch him?" "No." They changed my routes, randomized them. I started carrying pepper spray in addition to my firearm. I didn't see him again. But 3 months later, I got a call from a ranger in Yellowstone. She'd encountered a man in the restricted area. 50s, no gear. He knew her name. It was the same description. He's still out there. That ranger says she's still on patrol, but she still looks over her shoulder. But the third story I'm about to tell you, no one walks away from that station anymore. Winter in southeast Alaska is brutal. 20-hour nights, temperatures below zero. If you're stationed at one of the remote ranger outposts, you're alone. Completely alone. Black Creek Station is 40 miles from the nearest road, accessible only by snowmobile or helicopter. It's a one-man post, used for wildlife monitoring and permit enforcement during the winter months. In January of 2024, that post was manned by Ranger Tom Dell, 58, 12 years with the Forest Service, experienced, reliable. I was his district coordinator. I checked in with him by radio every 3 days. On January the 19th, at 2:14 a.m, I got a call. "This is Black Creek Station, requesting immediate backup. Intruder on property, armed. I can see him outside." It was Tom's voice. "Copy, Black Creek. I'm 90 minutes out. Stay inside. Do not engage. Confirm. Are you in immediate danger?" "Yes." The line went dead. I grabbed my gear and I headed out. The weather was bad. Snow, wind, but I made it in just under 2 hours. When I got there, the station looked normal. Lights on, Smoke from the chimney. No other tracks in the snow except mine. I radioed. Black Creek, this is Coordinator Hayes. I'm on site. Respond. Nothing. I approached the door. It was unlocked. Inside, everything was neat. The wood stove was still warm. The radio was on. And Tom was sitting in his chair. Dead. I checked for a pulse. Nothing. His body was frozen, stiff. Rigor mortis had already set in. I radioed for a medevac and a forensic team. When they arrived, the coroner did a field assessment. Time of death, approximately 70 to 80 hours ago. I stared at him. That's not possible. I got a distress call from him 2 hours ago. The coroner looked at me. Then it wasn't him. The investigation took 3 weeks. Cause of death, heart attack, likely stress-induced. No signs of forced entry, no footsteps outside except mine, no evidence of an intruder. But the radio logs confirmed it. The distress call I received came from Tom's radio inside the station at 2:14 a.m. on January the 19th, 3 days after he died. I went through his personal log. The last entry was dated January the 16th. It read, heard someone on the porch again. 3rd night in a row. No tracks in the snow. Starting to think I'm losing it. The Forest Service ruled it an equipment malfunction, atmospheric interference, a delayed transmission. But I pulled up the audio file. It wasn't static, it wasn't garbled. It was Tom's voice, clear, terrified. I can see him outside. Black Creek Station was closed for the rest of the winter. In spring, they assigned a new ranger. He lasted 2 weeks. He reported hearing footsteps on the porch at night, knocking on the door. But no one was ever there. The station was decommissioned in 2026. Official reason: operational concerns. You know, I still have that audio file. Sometimes, late at night, I listen to it and I wonder, if Tom had been dead for 3 days, who made that call? Black Creek Station remains closed. Ranger Tom Dell was 58 years old. The distress call has never been explained. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed, subscribe. I post 4 times a week, so you'll always have something to listen to. These are 3 stories from Yellowstone's Forbidden Zones. In each case, a ranger encounters something that made them question whether certain places should ever be accessible, or whether dangers are too unpredictable, too lethal, to ever be made safe. This is our first story. I've been a backcountry ranger at Yellowstone for 12 years. I've seen grizzlies tear apart campsites, watched bison gore tourists who got too close, pulled bodies out of rivers and off cliff sides. I thought I'd seen everything. Then I found the dump. It was late January, middle of winter. Most of the park was closed, roads buried under 6 feet of snow. I was doing a routine snowmobile patrol near Pelican Valley, a huge remote meadow system in the park's interior. Pelican Valley is a restricted area from April through to July every year. Bear management, grizzlies use it for denning and feeding, and the park doesn't want people getting between a stoat and her cubs. But in winter, it's supposed to be quiet, empty, except it wasn't. I was following a service road, one of those unmarked routes that rangers use to access remote patrol cabins, when I noticed something wrong. Fresh tire tracks, deep ones, like a truck had come through recently, and the gate at the access point had been cut. The chain was lying in the snow. ends clear, like someone had used bolt cutters. I followed the tracks. 2 miles in, I smelled it. If you've never smelled a carcass dump, it's hard to describe. It's not just rot, it's rot mixed with bile and blood and something metallic, and it sticks in your throat, coats your sinuses. I've smelled it before. The park has designated sites where we dispose of roadkill and euthanize animals, but this wasn't a designated site. I came around the bend and I saw it. Clearing, maybe 50 yards across, and in the center, a pile of carcasses. Elk, bison, at least 2 wolves, some fresh, some weeks old, some reduced to bones and hide, scattered across the snow in a rough circle. But what made me stop wasn't the pile, it was the arrangement. The bones weren't scattered randomly, they were stacked, ribs leaning against femurs, skulls lined up in a row, facing outwards, like someone had spent hours organising them, like a display. I got off the snowmobile and I walked closer, and that's when I saw the trail camera. It was zip-tied to a tree about 10 feet off the ground, pointing directly at the carcass pile. Not NPS issue, this was a personal camera, the kind hunters use. I climbed up and I pulled the SD card. Back on the ground, I loaded the card into my phone and started scrolling through the footage. Most of it was what you would expect. Grizzlies feeding at night, ravens during the day, coyotes skirting the edges. But then I saw something that made my stomach drop. Bigger, human-sized, wearing what looked like a ranger jacket, the old green and grey winter uniform we used to issue. The figure walked into frame around 2 AM, moved to the pile, and knelt down. They stayed there for an hour, barely moving. I fast-forwarded, found another clip. 3 days later, same figure, same posture, but this time, when it stood up, it turned towards the camera. The footage was grainy, low res, shot in infrared, but I could see the shape was wrong. The way it stood, shoulders too high, arms hanging too long, like the joints bent in places they shouldn't. And when it moved, it didn't walk. It swayed, side to side, natural. I pulled the SD card and pocketed it, looked around the clearing. The tire tracks led deeper into the woods, towards a section of the forest that wasn't on any map. I followed them on foot for maybe 100 yards, and that's when I heard it. Branches snapping, heavy, deliberate, something large, moving through the trees. Not a bear. Bears crash through underbrush, loud and chaotic. This was measured, controlled, like footsteps. I stopped, listened. The sound stopped too. Then it started again, closer. I turned and ran back to the snowmobile. I got on, started the engine, and that's when I saw it. The figure, standing at the edge of the clearing, 50 feet away, wearing that same ranger jacket, hood up, face lost in shadow. But I could see the silhouette, the proportions, arms that hung past where the knees should be, a posture that leaned too far forward, like it was balancing on legs that didn't quite work right. It didn't move, it didn't chase me, it just stood there, watching. I hit the throttle and I didn't look back until I reached the main road. I drove straight to the ranger station, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the handlebars. I went to my supervisor's office and told him everything, showed him the SD card. He watched the footage without saying a word. When it finished, he ejected the card, opened his desk drawer and dropped it inside. I saw at least 5 other SD cards in there, same brand, same model,
The old dump site, he said quietly. We stopped using it in 2019.
There are fresh tracks. Fresh.
I know.
He looked at me, and for the first time in 12 years, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear.
That area is now administratively closed under 36 CFR 1.5. You don't go back, ever, and you don't talk about what you saw.
I stared at him. What was that? He was quiet for a long time. He rubbed his face and finally said,
Every few years, someone reports seeing a ranger in the back country, in areas where no ranger should be. Same description, same jacket, wrong proportions. We used to investigate. Then we stopped.
Why?
Because the people we send to investigate.
He trailed off, shook his head.
2 of them never came back. Search teams found their gear, their radios, but no bodies. And the ones who did come back, they quit within a week, walked out and refused to talk about what they've seen.
He pulled a map from his desk and unfolded it, circled a section of Pelican Valley with a red marker.
This area is closed year-round now. No patrols, no access. If someone stumbles in, we tell them it's sensitive bear habitat. We don't tell them the real reason.
Which is? He looked at me like he was deciding how much to say. Finally,
when you leave food in the same place for long enough, you teach things how to find it. We thought we were feeding bears and scavengers, but something else was watching. Something that figured out patterns, timing, and when it saw us, saw rangers coming and going, it learned how to blend in.
You're saying it's mimicking us?
I'm saying something out there knows what a ranger looks like, knows what we wear, and it's smart enough to use that. Whether it's trying to get close to prey, or avoid being shot, or something else, I don't know, but it's been seen for at least 15 years, maybe longer.
He closed the map, looked me in the eyes.
You're the 4th person to bring me footage from that site. Every time, same thing, and every time, I file it away and close the area tighter. Because whatever that thing is, it's not leaving, it's territorial, and as long as we stay out, it stays put.
I left his office that day and I never went back to Pelican Valley. Filed my report, marked the coordinates as administratively restricted. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that figure. The way it stood at the edge of the trees, perfectly still, just watching. Not chasing, not threatening, just observing. And I think about the bones, stacked, arranged, an offering or a warning. And I think about the other rangers who went in and didn't come back. And I wonder if they're still out there, standing at the edge of clearings, wearing jackets that don't quite fit right, watching. Some dangers in Yellowstone are intelligent. They watch, they learn, they adapt to patterns. But not every threat thinks, not every danger can be reasoned with or avoided through caution. The next story is about a force that doesn't care if you're experienced or careful. It doesn't care if you're a ranger or a tourist. It's geologic, ancient, mindless. And when the ground decides to move, you have seconds to react, if you're lucky. I started working as a seasonal ranger at Yellowstone in April of 2024. I was 23, fresh out of college with a degree in environmental science and exactly zero experience dealing with real danger. They assigned me to the Norris Geisen Basin, the most volatile thermal area in the entire park. My first week, they sat me down for the safety briefing. Standard stuff. Don't leave the boardwalk. Keep tourists at a distance. Watch for thermal burns. But then the senior ranger pulled up a photo on his tablet. It was a crater, maybe 6 feet across, surrounded by debris, mud, rocks, shattered wood. He said it had appeared overnight in April, just weeks before I started. A hydrothermal explosion, small one, no injuries, but park geologists had detected it on seismic monitors. "These happen more than people realise," he told me, "but we don't advertise it. It's bad for tourism." Then he showed me another photo. Biscuit Basin, July 23rd, July 23rd, 2024. A massive explosion had sent boiling water and rocks over 100 feet into the air, destroyed a section of boardwalk, and closed the entire area indefinitely. He zoomed in on the debris field. Chunks of wood the size of cars, mud splattered across trees 30 feet up. "That one had 60-second warning," he said. "Seismic sensors picked up the pressure spike. We evacuated just in time. But Norris," he looked at me, "Norris doesn't always give warnings." I thought he was trying to scare me. I was wrong. He was trying to prepare me. It happened on a Tuesday in late June, peak season. The boardwalks were crowded. Families, retirees, solo hikers with expensive cameras. I was doing my usual patrol of Porcelain Basin, the area with the most active thermal features. That's when I saw them. A couple, mid-30s, wearing matching fleece jackets, standing about 15 feet from the boardwalk, taking selfies, right next to a pool of superheated water. I started towards them, already rehearsing my speech. "It's dangerous. The ground is thin. You could fall through." I got within 10 feet and stopped, because I felt it. The ground underneath my boots was vibrating, not shaking like an earthquake, pulsing, rhythmic, like it had a heartbeat. I looked down. Thin cracks were forming in the mineral crust. Steam was hissing up through them, hot enough that I could feel it through my pants. And the smell, sulfur, sharp and acidic, strong enough to make my eyes water. My radio crackled. "All personnel evacuate Norris immediately. Seismic sensors show pressure spike in Porcelain Terrace. This is not a drill." The couple looked at me, confused, annoyed that I was interrupting their photo op. I didn't explain. I grabbed the woman's arm and pulled, hard. "Run, now!" They didn't argue. Maybe it was the look in my face, maybe it was the sound, a deep, subsonic rumble that I felt in my chest more than I heard. We ran towards the boardwalk, boots pounding on the thin crust, and I could feel it accelerating beneath me. That pulse, faster now, stronger, like the ground was breathing, and it was about to exhale. Behind us, the terrain started to bulge. I saw it happen, the surface lifting, swelling, like something underneath was pushing up, pushing out. The couple reached the boardwalk and kept running. I turned back. There was a man still out there, 50s, camera around his neck, frozen. He was staring at the ground beneath him as it cracked and hissed. He looked up at me, opened his mouth, and then the ground exploded. Not the whole basin, just a section about 40 feet across. It happened so fast I didn't have time to process it. A column of steam and boiling water erupted into the air, carrying rocks, mud, pieces of boardwalk. The sound was deafening, a roar that echoed off the hills, doubled back onto itself and slammed into my chest like a physical force. I felt the heat on my face even from 50 yards away, felt the concussion rattle my teeth. When the steam cleared enough to see, the man was gone. Just gone. And where he'd been standing was a crater, 20 feet across, filled with churning grey-brown water. We found him 3 minutes later,
20 feet from the blast zone. Half buried in mud, his right leg had broken through the crust where he tried to run, and the scalding water underneath had caused third-degree burns from his foot to his hip. He was conscious, screaming. The sound is something I'll never forget. They airlifted him to the burn unit in Utah. He survived. They had to amputate below the knee. He'll never hike again. The park closed Norris for the rest of the season. But here's what they didn't tell the public. 3 days after the explosion, I was called into the ranger station. The senior ranger who briefed me was there, along with a USGS geologist. They had a laptop open, showing thermal imaging of porcelain basin. The geologist pointed to 3 spots on the screen, 3 areas glowing bright red on the infrared display. These are building pressure, he said. Same thermal signature as the April event, same seismic pattern as Biscuit Basin before it blew. I stared at the screen. When? The geologist shook his head. We don't know. Could be days, could be weeks, could be years. The system is too unstable to predict. The senior ranger spoke up. We're reopening in August, but we're rerouting the boardwalks, closing off sections. Which sections? I asked. He pointed to the map, 2 entire loops, a quarter of the basin. We're telling the public it's routine maintenance, trail repair. And the real reason? He looked at me. Those sections are still breathing, still building pressure, and we can't risk having people on them when they decide to let go. They reopened Norris in August like he said. I worked the rest of the season, watching tourists walk past barriers and closure signs, taking photos of geysers they didn't understand. Some of them complained, said they'd driven across the country and wanted access to the whole basin. I never told them the truth. That the ground beneath them closed sections was pulsing. That seismic monitors were picking up pressure spikes every few hours. That USGS had quietly installed additional sensors and was monitoring the area around the clock. And I never told them what the geologist said to me, quietly, as I was leaving the station that day. Norris has had at least a dozen documented hydrothermal explosions in the last 150 years. Small ones, like the one you saw, but the record suggests there had been larger events, much larger. Car-sized boulders thrown a quarter mile, craters 50 feet deep. He closed his laptop. We're not worried about the small ones anymore. We're worried about what happens if one of those 3 zones goes critical at the same time, if the pressure releases all at once. I asked him what that would look like. He didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, we'd evacuate the entire basin, and we'll probably lose some of it, permanently. I quit at the end of the season. I didn't come back the next year. But I still follow the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory reports, and every time I see an update about seismic activity at Norris, I think about that sound, that subsonic rumble, the way the ground pulsed beneath my feet like something was alive, and I wonder how much longer it will be until it exhales again. Hydrothermal explosions can kill in seconds. Boiling water, flying debris, ground that opens beneath your feet. But there's something worse than dying fast. There's dying slow, in front of someone who wants to help you, but can't. The last story is the hardest one to tell. It's about a decision every ranger hopes they never have to make, and it's about the protocol we don't talk about, the one that doesn't appear in any manual, the one that says, sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is nothing. I've been a ranger at Yellowstone for 15 years. In that time, I've seen 22 people die. Rockfalls, drownings, bear attacks, heart attacks on steep trails, and thermal burns. The thermal burns are the worst. Because with thermal burns, there's almost nothing you can do. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes,
You have to make a choice that will haunt you for the rest of your life. It was late September, just before the park started closing roads for winter. I got a call over the radio. Hiker in distress. Heart Lake Trail, approximately 8 miles in. No details, just in distress and GPS coordinates. Heart Lake is remote. The trail is 14 miles round trip, mostly through dense forest, and it sees maybe a dozen hikers a week outside of peak season. I grabbed my medical kit, radioed dispatch that I was en route, and I started hiking. It took me an hour and 40 minutes to reach the coordinates. When I got there, I heard him before I saw him, screaming, not yelling for help, screaming, the kind of sound that's pure pain, no words, just raw agony echoing through the trees. I came around the bend and saw him. He was in the water. Not a river, not a lake, a thermal pool. Maybe 15 feet across, surface smooth and pale blue, steam rising off it in lazy curls. Beautiful, if you didn't know what it was. The hiker was waist deep, mid-50s, balding, wearing a fleece jacket and hiking pants, but the pants weren't pants anymore. They were melting into his skin, fabric and flesh fusing together in the superheated water. His legs were submerged, and I could see, even from 20 feet away, that his skin was peeling, coming off in sheets. The water around him was cloudy with blood and tissue. He saw me, reached out. "Help me, please, God, help me!" I dropped my pack and I ran to the edge of the pool, got within 5 feet and stopped, because the ground around the pool was unstable, thin crust, barely an inch thick, covering superheated mud. I could see cracks forming from where I was standing, steam hissing up. If I stepped closer, I'd break through, and if I broke through, we'd both die. I got on the radio, tried to keep my voice steady. "Dispatch, this is Ranger 7-4. I have code red thermal injury, Heart Lake backcountry, adult male, waist deep in acidic spring. Severe burns to lower extremities and torso, requesting immediate medevac." Static, then, "Acknowledged, patching in medical." The park medical officer came on the line. Her voice was calm, clinical. I described the injuries in detail, the peeling skin, the exposed muscle, the way the water was clouding with dissolved tissue. I didn't sugarcoat it. "Can you safely extract him?" she asked. I looked at the ground, at a crack spreading beneath my boot, at the hiker who was staring at me with eyes that started to glaze over from shock. "No," I said. "The terrain is too unstable. If I go in, we both go in." Silence on the line, long enough that I thought I lost connection. Then, "Understood. Stay with him. Keep him calm. We're sending a helicopter, but it's 40 minutes out. Do you have pain medication?" I had morphine in my kit, enough to dull the pain, but not enough to stop it. Not for the injuries this severe. "Affirmative. Administer it and..." She paused. I heard her talking to someone in the background, voice muffled. Then she came back on. "Make him as comfortable as you can." I understood what she wasn't saying. He's not going to make it. I knelt as close to the edge as I dared. The hiker was shaking now, teeth chattering, eyes unfocused. Shock was settling in, and the water was still dissolving him. I could see bones in the gaps in his skin. "What's your name?" I asked. "David." His voice was weak, slurred. "David Chen." "Okay, David, I'm going to give you something for the pain. It's going to help. Just stay with me, okay?" He nodded, barely. I unwrapped the morphine, leaned out as far as I could without breaking through the crust. and I injected it into his shoulder. He didn't even flinch. "Why isn't there a sign?" he asked. His voice was fading, words running together. "Why isn't this marked?" I didn't have an answer. The truth was, there are hundreds of unmarked thermal features in Yellowstone, maybe thousands. Some appear overnight when underground pressure shifts. Some are so remote we don't even know they exist until someone stumbles into one. And some, like this one, are too unstable to safely fence or mark without sending people in to do it. "I'm sorry," I said. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment he understood. "I'm not getting out, am I?" I wanted to lie, to tell him the helicopter was almost there, that we'll pull him out, that he'll be okay. But I've never lied to someone who's dying. I wasn't going to start now. "No," I said quietly. "You're not." He closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek, cut a line through the mud and ash on his face. "Okay." "Is there anyone you want me to call?" I asked. "Family? Friends?" "My wife, Ellen." His voice was barely a whisper now. Tell her I love her. And I'm sorry I went off trail. She told me not to. She always tells me not to." "I'll tell her." He nodded, tried to tell me something else, but the words didn't come. His breathing was slowing, getting shallow. The morphine was taking effect, but so was the shock. His body was shutting down. We sat there for 6 minutes. I talked to him the whole time, asked about his wife, his kids, his favourite hikes. He answered at first, voice getting quieter, words slurring. Then he stopped answering. His head drooped forward, and then he slipped under. The pool swallowed him without a sound. One moment he was there, chest deep, eyes half open. The next moment he was gone. The water closed over him like he never existed. I sat there for another hour, staring at the pool, waiting for the helicopter. When it finally arrived, I waved them off. There was nothing to recover, nothing they could. The next day, I came back with a recovery team. We approached the pool wearing full hazmat gear, carrying poles to test the ground stability. When we got to the edge, we looked in. The water was clear, pale blue, perfectly still. There was no body, no clothing, no backpack, nothing. The team leader, a ranger who'd been at Yellowstone for 30 years, he looked at me and said, "This is the 9th one I've seen. Every time, same result. Give it 24 hours and there's nothing left. The acidity is around pH 2, temperature's over 200 degrees. It dissolves organic matter completely." I filed my report. Cause of death, thermal injury, acidic immersion, body unrecoverable. It went into the park database along with 21 others. I called David's wife that night, told her what happened, told her he didn't suffer long, told her that he loved her. She asked if she could have his body, if there could be a funeral. I had to tell her no, that there wasn't a body, that the park couldn't recover anything. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "How many?" "How many what?" "How many other people have died like this, in these pools that aren't marked?" I didn't answer right away. Finally, 22 that I know of, since I started. She hung up. I think about David Chen every time I patrol Hark Lake. The pool is still there, still unmarked, still waiting, because there are places in Yellowstone we can't mark safe, places that are too remote, too unstable, too unpredictable. And every year, someone wanders off trail looking for a view, or a photo, or a quiet place to be alone. And some of them find the pools we don't mark, and some of them don't come back.
And I wonder how long it be before I get another call, before I have to make another choice, before I have to look into someone's eyes and tell them the truth, that I can't save them, that nobody can, and that the kindest thing I can do is stay and watch and make sure that they don't die alone.